Okay, hello there. Let me see all the properties. Yes. Yes. Do we have anyone here? Doesn't look like it. Anyhow. So how's it going, everyone? In the future? The posterity, you know? So yeah, yesterday I wasn't really too articulate, I guess. So nowadays, today I'm going to try to sort of finish what I started yesterday with the Corten steel material. And then I think I'm going to stop the stream and start it again so that it's like nice and structured. And I'm going to start presenting to you, showing to you my desert material, my Qatari desert material that I also finished a couple of weeks ago. And that's a much more complex material. And there are a couple of things that might be of interest to you, such as height blending and like procedural sort of subgraphs, sub groups, generators that we are going to have a look at. So yeah, I guess I can show you InstaMAT now. So let's click that button, transition. Yeah, so this is pretty much where we left off yesterday, except you can see on the right side here, I have created a lot of parameters, I don't know, parameters, I'm gonna say parameters because that's more American, I guess, huh? Anyhow, more parameters that will sort of allow the user to control what they want from the graph. It's mostly related to some aspects of the graph, like for example the sort of the colors. Mostly colors. If you remember yesterday, we talked about how this material is just mostly color, right? Like it's mostly color differentiation, color variation, or as InstaMAT says, variance. So it's mostly that, right? Like adjust the hues, adjust the luminance or luminosity and stuff like that. And I also created some parameters that control the roughness and also the general blend of the two aspects of the material, that is the rust and the base metal. So I'm going to show what I exposed to the user, and I'm also going to tell you a few like hints or tips as to how to approach this. I'm by no means an expert in this kind of thing or at this kind of thing in InstaMAT. I actually had to ask a couple of questions in on the Discord channel, and luckily there are always some nice devs that give you nice answers. So if you're not on Discord, come to Discord. We are nice and sexy and all that, you know? Anyhow, let me open the graph. And maybe we can just make this smaller. So let's adjust the, maybe make it a bit brighter so that we can see the light response and the colors better, right? So, how do you expose a parameter in InstaMAT? It's quite simple, really. Let's get something very simple, a brick generator. Yeah, and oops, where is the texture? It's hiding. Come on. Ah, there we go. Yeah, and so if you click this button, expand, or if you when you are selecting a node, when you press Shift and Space bar, Shift Space, it sort of opens all the different settings you have and all the different inputs you have, and you can expose those. You can expose those in a couple of ways. For example, you can just drag and release, and it's going to give you the quick search. But here you have these two options, right? Expose bevel as graph input and expose bevel as local variable. Well, the difference between these two is that the local variable will be like an exposed attribute or a number or something, right? That's only going to be visible for you as the author of the graph, while the graph input is going to be something that the user will be able to adjust. You know, you're exposing that parameter to the user instead of just you. Or it's not like it's like the difference between backend and front end, I guess, a little bit. So since we are exposing sort of parameters for the user, I'm going to click the graph input. And so now I have this number, and right now, if I were to control this from this node, let's say I wanted to change the bubble, it doesn't do anything, right? Because it's overridden by this value here, which you have here, right? In the what is this part called? I actually don't know. This sidebar, you know, this properties bar. And so now I can adjust the bevel of this. And this works for everything you see here. There's really no limit, right? Like you can control everything or almost everything, right? Like you can even control these. I showed this in a different video. I don't remember. I think about it was the stream about tool creation. So you can go back and reference how to do this there. I actually don't remember. There is a bit of a gotcha there, if I remember correctly. But this is basically how you do it. And that's one way of exposing parameters. Another way is that you find it here and right-click on bevel and say expose as input parameter. Right? Right now, let's choose something else. Let's say I don't know. Let's do the count. Also, that's the third way. You can right-click on this, say expose input parameters. You can choose what you want, and you can do a bulk, you know, of them. You can do a lot of them at the same time. So let's say I want to do this and this, right? And now we get 2 more inputs, which is nice, right? Like here I can control the count, just like in the node. Yeah, I can change this. You know, it's very useful. Yeah, and also you can then sort of drag and drop these, and you can have the same value affect something else. So let's say I get another, whoops, I didn't want to do that. Let's get a new one to show you, a brick generator. Okay, another way of opening this, except for, or besides Shift and Spacebar, or you're clicking expand, is that you get this connection, this noodle, and you hold it over expand, it's going to blink, and then you can choose your input, right? So I'm going to use bevel of variance here. And it's the same number, same parameter. I didn't get a new menu here, but I can control both of them at the same time, right? Like you can see it changing here, and you can see it changing here. So that's also very very useful when you want to create some like a controller that will affect multiple similar nodes. For example, let's say you want some constant values across different nodes. And some of them are going to be different, right? So you then expose them separately, which is very useful. But remember to get the same functionality, to get the same value, the same sort of node that controls both of these, you have to drag and drop it from here. At least I don't know any other way to do this. I don't know if you can just copy it. You can also copy it. So when you hold Alt and drag, you can also copy it, and it's going to be the same. So that's actually easier. All right, so that's how you do these basic sort of exposing the attributes or the local variables. I can also show a local variable. Let's expose this thing. And you can't actually do it from here, I guess. You have to drag it. So let's gap size as local variable. And you can see that it doesn't show here. It shows here for this. And this is only going to be visible to you. It's not when someone opens it for, you know, when you export it as a cooked project, as sort of a project that cannot be edited any further, then, or it cannot be edited in the element graph at least. Then this won't be visible, but you can use it as a constant across the, or as a variable actually. It makes more sense across the whole graph. So that's good, right? I'm going to delete all of those, and notice that right here we have this little icon that says that this no longer exists, right? This is like an empty menu, which is a good debugging tool. So I would definitely use that if I were you. So if there's something missing, maybe you broke some connection somewhere, or maybe you forgot to delete this, and so you can just trash these, right? All right. So that's one aspect of it. Now you can do a lot. Right? I don't want to go through all the details, but one of the important parts is, for example, this. You can, if you right-click on the name of the exposed parameter, you can change the type, which is not that useful because you usually expose what you what you need, and it already has the right data type, so that's not as important, but this is important. Change UR control type to, and you get a couple of options, right? So at this point I have it as a slider, so I can just move this, right? We have to wait for the graph to process. It's a bit heavy. This should in fact warp this stuff a little bit. Well, yes, you can see that it's warping the lines a little bit, yeah? And now it's straight again, or mostly straight again. So that's that, and you can change that control type to something else. So let's say a percentage slider. Instead of 50, 0.5, you can have 100%, and it's 100% of the warp that I set up, or 15%. Yeah, I'm gonna change it back to slider because that makes more sense. But you have other options there. You can explore it on your own. It's actually quite useful. I tend to like sliders. They are more like visuals and like tactile almost. When you're like using your mouse or something, it makes more sense to me than having like a spin box or which is just arrows that go up and down. And it's like it's not a natural movement. And it doesn't feel natural to me, but it's fine. Another thing is that you can show the setup, really like a backend setup for this variable in this variable editor. So here we have like all the properties and a list of all the outputs for a graph and the local variables and some metadata and some versioning, which basically like under the hood it saves like whenever you save or whenever you change something, it creates a version under the hood so that that works nicely. You can keep track of changes, but it's not that important right now. Here you have the variable editor, and so basically all of these things, whenever you click on it, it changes this menu for this exposed parameter to this exposed parameter, and you can adjust a lot of things. For example, I don't know if I can. Oh, here, look, I changed the range. Instead of it going from 0.7 to 1 for this, it only goes from 0.7 to, sorry, instead of going from 0 to 1, it goes from 0.7 to 1, right? But you still get in the menu, if I show you, I don't know which one this is, medium rust roughness. That's not going to be very visible, but you can see that we still have this whole slider, so you get a much finer control of the parameter. So like instead of like being like having to find the setting you want in say this like 1/3 of the slider, you actually have 100% slider that goes from 70 to 100 for this opacity parameter. So that's very useful. All of that you can set in the variable editor. There is also the category. I don't know. Again, English. Category. I'll get to that in a minute. That is useful to when you want to create menus. There are also some visibility expressions. Basically, you can like you have to go to the documentation and see what the expressions are and how to use them. I actually haven't studied it yet. But you can like do some sort of dependencies like on what is supposed to be visible when the value is this and that. I don't know if that makes sense. Probably go to the documentation and check it out. It's actually much better described than what I can do right now. Oh, hello, Mike. Welcome. My loyal audience. Thank you. All right, so as I was saying, this is the variable editor where you can like specify a lot of the like fine settings, fine print settings for your graph. Of course, you can type in some documentation. It's like this is probably more useful to when you're like preparing the graph for a colleague of yours, for example, or maybe if it's like for a large studio, you can have some internal tags that you want to use to sort of describe the stuff. I'm pretty sure this also applies to what can be like seen from the command line, or what's it called in InstaMAT? The sort of the yeah, command line editor for InstaMAT, and then you can, for example, find all your materials in the whole studio in your database that have a certain parameter, and you render that. I don't know. Maybe I'm making stuff up. Maybe I'm not. I don't think I am, but I obviously haven't been using that as a single individual. That doesn't make much sense to me, but that's how far this can go. All right. There is also this feature parameter. You can indicate that this setting will turn off a lot of the other settings you have there. Again, you would have to do some visibility expression thing there, I think, but essentially what it would do, right? Let's go back to our inputs, and let's say I have these lines here, right? And like I said, I was going to make a setup where these can be turned off. Well, luckily this is very easy now. So I exposed, where is it? Here. For the directional noise, I exposed the count, right? I dragged and you can see that there is a little line there showing that this is actually an external parameter controlling it, or exposed parameter. And like normally this goes from 1 to x, I don't know, right? 32 or something like that. But you can also override that in the variable editor. And I said, let's let the range be 0 instead of 1 to 5, right? 0 to 5 instead of 1 to 5. Well, that means that when I go to 0, that's going to remove the lines because there won't be any lines, right? And so instead of setting like a complex blending setup or like a enum setup, conditional selects and all that, I can just turn them off, right? And it's going to propagate throughout the graph. So now we have no more lines. How beautiful. So that was actually pretty easy. You can also make a lot more of them. Might look good. I don't know. If that's what you're looking for, you can have more lines. And this is how you expose it to the user, right? Like you don't have to make the decision yourself. You can let the user direct your setup a little bit. All right. So let me show you the material again. I'm gonna let it load on the stream. So again, we have a couple of aspects of the material. We have the sort of the rust blending with the metal base. We have these lines. We have more lines here. We have drips. We have these like orange sort of burning drips. We have these white drips or leaks. We have like overall grunginess there, and a lot of it can be controlled from this from these parameters that I used. So going back to the graph, mostly these parameters here are mostly this, right? I exposed the directional warps and the slope blurs that we saw yesterday. Now, there is this beautiful node called lerp, lerp standing for linear interpolation. And if you are familiar with Blender at least, there is a map range node. And this is pretty much it, right? At least the it like takes the minimum and the maximum, right? Or the A and B. There is a mathematical formula that you can find on Discord. One of the developers posted it there for me. And you have the input that you can expose. So in this case, what I'm exposing is the intensity of the directional warp, right? This thing here. So how much it warps. Well, I don't want it to be, if I don't do this, you can see that it's way too much, right? Like the more I go, the crazier it gets. So I don't want to do that, right? And I want the user, not to have to think about it. It's like, when you open a material, you don't want to be like testing all the controls. You want to be adjusting the stuff as fast as possible and just make it happen for your object, right? So basically, I limited the range, right? I'm saying like the maximum is 0.3 intensity, and that's already a lot actually. Like you're gonna see, I think. Yeah, it's like it becomes very wavy, almost too much for what it is. Like I could go further, right? I can override this. I can say intensity of 5, and it's going to ask me, do you want me to override this, right? And I say yes, and now it's super crazy. So we don't want to do that, right? We want 0.5 to 0.3 to be equal to, when the value is equal to 1, it will remap it onto this value here. So basically 0.3. Hopefully I'm explaining it, like I'm simplifying, obviously, right? But that's how I tend to think about it, and it works. So hopefully that's it. All right, so lerp is very good. What you can also do sometimes, for example, when I have I don't remember here, yeah, large drips, glossiness. Basically, I'm removing roughness here. So large drip glossiness here. Let me show you the map. Hopefully it will show on the stream because it's very subtle, right? And so the blend mode here is actually set to average, but I'm using a black color or like a dark color. And so what do I want to do, right? I want to add more black into the texture. So I'll say I increase this number, this value, and it should show somewhere. I don't know. We don't have like a good enough light for this. I would have to use another HDRI, maybe another model. And you can see I also limited it to 65%. I don't want it to go any higher because then we are getting into like non-realistic values. So I'm just gonna undo this, just keep a little bit of it, like 15% of this color gets averaged in. Like it's really subtle, but we are dealing with rust again, so we don't want too much. If I turn it off, you can see what it does, right? Like hopefully you can see what it does on YouTube. You get these like black streaks that we wanted. Now, what I was going to explain is that you can use the lerp node, lerp, linear interpolation. You can see that there are actually a couple of them for vectors and all that. Like we don't have to work with vectors here, so that's fine. Where is it? Here. What you can do is when you want the relation to be reverted, to be inverse, right? Well, that's very easy. You just do this, and like normally you would have 0 to 1, right? And so a what's it called in English? I always forget. Like the indirect inverse something. I don't remember the English word. Basically, the proportionality gets inverted. You know, the higher it gets, the smaller the value gets. Well, that's easy. You just invert these, just like you would in Blender, right? And now, if I increase this, it's actually going to I don't know if I can show you. The value is going to be different, right? Like the value of 15 is actually here 85, right? 0.85. And so if I increase this, where is it? Here. Yeah, you can see that it's like subtracting it. So it's the sort of, we wouldn't be adding glossiness, we would be adding roughness, right? And for me, it makes sense to generally, like when you declare this that this is like glossiness, you would add it, right? Like the higher value would mean more glossiness. So that's just something to think about. Sometimes you will have, for example, a subtract node, which, you know, under the hood is going to like decrease the value, but maybe you want the user to think that he's adding something. It's more natural for us, I think, to approach, you know, the creative process this way, like adding an element instead of removing an element. So inverting the lerp node is quite useful for that. All right. Okay. So yeah, another thing you can do. And this is actually a hack, right? I didn't think ahead, and I couldn't remove all, like this is for this slider, okay, rust cover blend opacity. If I move it to this, actually it's, okay, let me shut this down. No, I can't shut this down. Okay, let me do this. All right, so you see, the problem here is that even if I do set the blend to 0, because of the way this is set up, it was stupid how I set it up, but I couldn't like fix it in any simple way. So I created a hack. Yeah. Anyway, I don't expect like, why would you get a Corten steel material and then remove all the rust? That doesn't make sense to me. So hopefully that's not going to be a big deal. But anyway, I couldn't remove all the rust. Right, there is this map, but this map actually, that just like it's difficult to remove it right now, and like I couldn't be bothered. And so what I did, I created a conditional statement here. So if this value is less than this, basically less than 5%, then use white color, meaning as a result, you will not get any rust. And this is what we get. This is just the base metal material that we had from before, this part, right? Because we are using that to drive the material blend. Also, as you can see, I inverted it, yeah, so that it makes more sense. Like it's called rust cover blend opacity. So the more there is, the more rust there is, yeah. So you can use these compare nodes, I would call them. That's what they are called in Blender. And so you can type less. No, you have to type the sign, the mathematical symbol for that, right? So this is like less than or equal, and you have this for these data types, right? Like you can compare a float with a float, integer with an integer, a unit integer with a unit integer. We are not going to go into data types now, but for example, yellow is Boolean, meaning 0 false, 1 yes, true. Yeah, you have these statements here. Like if this condition is met, if it is smaller than 5%, then it takes the true value, and if it is not, it keeps the original image in this case. So that's how it works. It's very simple. I mean, it's like super basic coding if you ever saw that, or like I'm sure you have heard of an if statement or a conditional statement. Now we have a lot of these conditional select nodes. Conditional select, right? Like we have them for all the data types or the images, meshes, strings, what have you. We even have like for like when you blend a lot of stuff, we have multi-conditional, I can't pronounce it, multi-conditional select image. I don't use it, so I'm not going to talk about it. So that's that. We also have the enum selects. I think Tori actually made a video about it recently. Basically, these create like sort of arrays or help you. It's a switch. It's essentially a switch. Let me show you. Let's get an image here. Yeah. Let's get select image. Yes. We want a case of 1 and 2, right? Now we can get 2 colors, black and white. Yeah, and so here we have the cases, basically the numbers of the inputs, and we can switch between them. And of course, you could add something here, so you can make this dependent on some conditional statement and stuff like that. Basically, you can get like very procedural with this, just like you would in something like geometry nodes in Blender, or I don't know, what have you, Houdini, right? Okay, so that's that. Now, I guess there are 2 more things I want to talk about, but I'm going to take a sip as usual. I'll wait for Mike to ask any questions if he's interested. If not, I'll be back. Okay then. So, how did I approach some of these things? For example, there is this metal base roughness range. So I actually had a levels node here, and I didn't exactly know like how much roughness I want for the metal. I think we talked about it last time a little bit. So let me show some of the metal. Yeah, like this. So you can see the metal here, and like, you know, my average value here seems to be somewhere around like 0.5 to 0.7, which is fine. I'm not angry about that. But what if the user wanted sort of a, you know, less rough metal? Well, I expose this levels aspect, so I'm going to make it much less rough, right? But I'm also keeping the minimum there, right? It's still not going to be less rough than 0.2 20% roughness. I can also go lower. It's becoming really shiny, which is obviously unrealistic, but you know, maybe someone wants this. I don't know. So let me just reset that. Okay. Another tip could be that you want to see where your values generally are. You can use the levels node, that's fine, the histogram then. You can also use this minimax node. And minimax looks at your image and says, you know, the minimal value is 0.4, the maximum value is 0.7. It's very useful. I use that all the time when I'm like diagnosing, debugging my roughness channels. Like basically, when I work on a roughness, I showed you before, like let's say I'm at the beginning of my blending sequence, and so I only have this, right? And I want to see like where I got with that. I'll just put in a minimax, and then as I progress, I just keep plugging my values back into the minimax node, and at the end, like if I'm okay with the general range of it, I also check the levels, maybe make some adjustments. But this is another like tip for consistency. So minimax node, very useful. It's a bit heavy sometimes, so sometimes you can just turn it off and it won't compute the value for you. It's just going to sit there. It's fine, right? Okay. So that's the general range. So without me like really changing the values manually, like having to expose all these like grunges and levels and all that, I can just say, you know what, like I'm okay with you just having like very superficial control of saying like how the range behaves, right? I can make it a bit more rough at the bottom end. So yeah, it's going to like clamp some of those very low roughness values, like very glossy values. Or I can make it very uniform at the like 0.15 difference here. Like I can make it super rough, that's super unrealistic. I can make it super glossy, that's super unrealistic. I can be somewhere in the middle, that's probably fine. Actually, I might change that value a little bit so it's like more interesting. Maybe something like this. That sounds good. Like I said, metals are generally quite shiny unless they are like super weathered. So I don't know. Maybe something like this. Right. All right. So that's how I approach this. Another thing that actually Dan helped me with in in the chat. So we have this hue saturation value node and hue saturation luminosity. Oh my god, you know what I mean. And it's a bit touchy, right? Like it's very sensitive. Let me disconnect this, right? So let's say I change it by 5%, right? I get like super yellow rust, completely unrealistic. This looks like I don't even know. It looks like piss. It's like, you know, this looks like pollen from plants. You know, like a bee would like this. I don't like this. I want rust, not pollen. So this is really sensitive, and it goes because like at 0 it's it just retains the input hue, and if you go all the way to 1, it goes back 360 degrees around the color circle. So that's a bit let's say it's a bit much, right? You can have it set to -100. It's the same, right? Like you get the same value because you went all the way around the hue wheel. You don't want that. So what you can do is you expose the parameter again, boom, and then you go to the settings for this, and you just say that it's going to the values that it's going to cover is like minus 0.2 and 0.2, 0.02, minus 0.02, essentially what is an equivalent of 2%, right? 2%. And that's exactly what we want. Do we want it more on the, oh sorry, I have to control it here. Do we want it more on the yellow side, or do we want it more on the red side? And you can see that this is already a bit extreme, so I only gave the user the ability to change it by 2%. Of course, if he wants, or she wants, or it wants, or whoever wants, whatever, you can override this. You can give 15, right? And just say override, and it's going to be green. I don't know if it might be some nice alien, you know, Necron kind of Doom rust. I don't know. All right, let's go back. So that's how I exposed this. I don't know if I did the same for luminosity. No, maybe. I don't remember, but essentially, this is like much more obvious what you're doing. Like, you know, it's not as extreme, so that's fine. I think I also did it for luminance. Yes, I only you can only change it by 10% of the luminance wheel. So that I didn't want to run into like pure whites and pure blacks, right? That doesn't make sense. Again, it would be breaking the PBR rules. So nah, that's why I did it. Saturation, I didn't probably treat saturation at all, but you know, again, it's like you know what you're doing. I feel like again, I could make it more sensitive, less sensitive, in fact, more precise, but for now I haven't. All right. What else? Well, that's it. So what I want to do now is to create some menus for the user to be able to sort of to organize the visual experience, the UX experience for him. And it's very easy, right? Like we take one of these variables, for example, these horizontal lines count, and we create, here we go to the, we are going to open it in the variable editor again, and here in the category we say horizontal lines. That's it. Yeah, we don't have to do anything else. And now, in theory, let me see. Did I actually expose it correctly? Unit range, value, control slider, documentation, quick storage advanced. I don't know. Oh, here. Yeah, it's at the bottom. I'm blind. Yes, we have already created a menu for the horizontal lines. Yeah, all the uncategorized attributes are going to show on top, right? So that's it. Right. Let's just move these. Now we don't even have to do anything. We just select all of these and we move them into here. And now we have a menu, a collapsing menu that we can use for the horizontal lines. So what we could do if we were more advanced, I suppose, we could like make all these values appear only if we set this to anything else than 0, to larger than 0. That would need a conditional statement, but yeah, you can do this. What were you looking for, Mike? The menu system. It's quite useful, but it's a bit hidden. Yeah, menus are cool, definitely. Menus are important, especially like, you know, the more complex the material, the more likely you are to need a parameter for that complexity, right? And so you can get like 15, 20 parameters, and all of them are important in a way. So like even at the minimum, I think most people should have like this material finalize thing exposed, right? Because you have the hue, saturation, luminosity inputs, you have height blur, you have the normal strength, the color sharpening, the AO darkening, all of that, which are like important stylistic tools. So at the very least, I would almost always, at this point, I always use it. I always use this material finalize and just expose these parameters, right? Because here, in this case, we have like two materials blending together. I'm using two material finalize. I guess I could do it here as well, but I wanted to expose these HSL values. I guess I could have done it here, right? But I wasn't really thinking, so I exposed a new HSL node because I was experimenting, right? So that's that. Yeah, it's a bit hidden, but it's there. It's there. They thought about it. All right, now, so let's create more menus, right? I guess what would make sense is to also have these Rust parameters grouped. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go to the editor, and I'm gonna say Rust adjustments. Boom. Go back. We have Rust adjustments, and we just drag these there, hue above, right? And yeah, we also have this surface grain intensity. It actually controls. I added this today. It's very subtle, but I don't know if you can't see it. You can't see it. There is a. Oh, here. actually. This should be enabled. Are we there? And if I, yeah, that should have been enabled. Sorry, that's a mistake. I added I ended up adding a lot of like grainy height details. You know, I saw it in some of the references, but the reference I had from the real world didn't have this. It was like polished, I guess, or brushed or something. So at first I didn't have this, but I thought, like it's Rust. People expect it to be like bumpy. I should add that possibility, right? So I have this large drip. Sorry, there's this graininess somewhere here, grain intensity. I can just switch it off. Boom, right? And that's it. That should be entirely gone, right? It's gone. And we should still have some detail there. Is it not? Blend. Maybe I actually forgot to do this the correct way. Let's turn off this. Hey. Yeah, I think I forgot to finish this. I'll get back to it in a minute. Anyway, so that's the one change I made. I also ended up not liking the color on the lines, so I also changed that. I changed the value. I also, when I was experimenting with the material, I switched the seed quite a bit, and I got some really extreme images that I didn't want. So I actually lowered some of the values for the color. Right? For example, if you remember, I had this like really heavy banana yellow, and I used it for the leaks, and I used it in conjunction with soft light, and that actually oversaturates it even more. So I just had to tone it down. I made a lot of tweaks like that. I also used the target color replace color node, the HSL replace color node, and I had a color picked here somewhere, and I actually exposed this to the user as well, so that now he can choose like the color for the lines, because I saw that some of them are like pink, yellow, some of them are this like really brown, deep red. So people can adjust it to their own references or needs. Okay. Now, the last few settings here are basically adjustments for some of the details. So let me just put on the rust back so that we don't see any metal. And for example here, right, like we have these really like almost burning orange leaks. And so this is what controls it, right? Like how colored they are. They are still there in the roughness. I didn't want to remove that, but how much you sort of colorize it in the rust. So I think I had a value of 70 there. It might be a little more. It depends, right? It depends on the lighting and all that. So again, exposed to the user. Medium roughness. Okay, these are just like roughness adjustments. I remember talking about like maybe wanting to create a wet wall. This goes a bit in that direction. You can make it more glossy, less rough. All right, so let's put these into these adjustments. Oops. And general grunge, medium drips, large drips, leaks. Okay, that makes sense. We should also call it rust here for uniformity. Maybe since it's in the menu, we don't have to call it Rust anymore, but I like to do this. It's like a naming convention, I guess, that I have. Well, actually, one thing I don't like is that it capitalizes the first letter for you. And like, from coding and all that, I'm used to this convention where like the first letter is a minuscule, right? Instead of a capital letter, but this actually looks good from a readability standpoint. I guess it's okay. So yeah, we've done that. This should stay here because it's like a general setting, and this is like an overall general roughness thing, I think. Yes, so maybe yeah, we can keep it here, and it's just like removing roughness so that we get again a bit more shinier part in that metal, in that material. It also feels like revealing some of the metal, so I thought that this would be a good setting to have. All right. Now, all these values that you set up in your graph are going to be the default values when someone opens it, for example, in the layering. So it's actually a good practice to have these values set to what you want, right? Like don't forget to readjust everything so that the user like knows what you were aiming for with your material. Well, and that's it. That about covers this really simple yet I think educationally interesting material. And yeah, how long have I been streaming for? About 45 minutes, maybe? Yeah, 47 minutes. All right, I think I can do more, but I'm going to shut this stream down and, you know, so that it's separate for people who want to, you know, focus on one material. And I'm going to be back in, let's say, 5 minutes with the desert material. So Mike, if you want, please rejoin, and I'll be right back. Bye bye for now.